Good morning to you. Welcome to Saturday Sport. I'm Nicole Kente and I'm happy to be in your company this morning. I love spending my Saturday mornings with you. Of course, a lot is happening in sport, and to help me unpack it all, I'm joined this weekend by senior sports writer Simnikiwe Xabanisa. Sims, there's been a lot going on.
Yeah, looks like all three of our sporting codes are in trouble, but hey, what's new?
All three of our sporting codes and one in particular, but we will chat about that as we continue. Of course, we were supposed to also welcome a new Bafana coach this afternoon, but that's not going to happen. We'll chat about that as well. The unveiling of the next man in the hot seat will now take place next week. And of course, Cricket South Africa has a lot of controversy going on behind the scenes that continues with the sports minister, of course, invoking his powers and withdrawing government recognition of the body itself. Now, joining us via Zoom, we do have SASCOC President Mr. Barry Hendricks to chat more about that. Now, Barry, good morning to you, and thank you so much for making the time. Now, I must say, we've seen this tug of war with Cricket South Africa and various participants, trying to assist in, moving it into the right direction for a very, very long time. We saw it with Cricket South Africa and SASCOC. We've seen it with CSA as well as the Minister. And very recently, we saw it unfolding with the Members' Council at Cricket South Africa and the Interim Board. With the decision that the Minister has recently made, Barry, what is your reaction to this intervention of his?
SASCOC is saddened. We are gutted. If this matter goes through to completion, this will be the first minister that ever takes away recognition of a sports federation and defunds a sports federation. So we are extremely saddened, and we still hope to continue our negotiations and our dialogue to try and correct the situation.
Now, Barry, of course it is a terrible decision, but do you not think that Cricket South Africa has had an extremely long time? They've had very, very many years to get their house in order. And there was actually a tweet from, you'll know him, player Farhan Behardien earlier, where he had mentioned the very many people that can be affected. We quite often speak about the sponsors, we speak about the players, and we forget about the many individuals within administration who could lose their jobs.
Well, not only that, think about the 500,000 rand that government usually gives cricket for development. That means that those youngsters are going to lose out on that opportunity to develop themselves. And that is why we think it's important for this matter to be reconsidered so that we can sit around the table and correct the situation. And SASCOC is committed to do that, to sit with all the stakeholders over a period, let's say 2 weeks, to correct it. So we call on the Minister to halt the process, give us a chance for dialogue, give us a chance for the democratic process to conclude, and then we will correct the situation with our stakeholders, including himself.
I did mention we do have Sims in studio here with us. Sims, Barry says we call on the Minister to halt the situation. For how much longer should we halt it? Because it has been very many years. The Nicholson report is dated 2013.
Yeah, look, forget the fact that the Nicholson report was dated in 2013. Over the last six months, we've had a situation where the interim board and, thought they were in understanding with the Members' Council in terms of, okay, cool, we're going to do this. And then when it came to the crunch, each time the Members' Council has gone the other way. What I want to ask, Barry, is what is SASCOC's take on this? Do you have a side? Because obviously the sticking point is the majority independent directors and an independent chairman. What is SASCOC's take on this?
SASCOC's position is clear right from 2012 when the first Nicholson report came out. Our position and the whole of the sports movement in this country is based on a free, democratic, elective process. SASCOC's board in 2012 rejected the Nicholson's recommendation that said that the majority of board members should be independents. Take into account that the same thing happened in 2018 with the Zulman Committee report, where they recommended that the president of SASCOC be an independent. SASCOC was able to sit down with the then Minister Xasa and her department and came to an agreement to say that in terms of the South African sports scenario, that sort of position defies our natural elective democratic process of electing people to leadership positions. Now that same principle was accepted by Minister Fikile Mbalula in 2012. So we are quite concerned that we now have a position where those principles were accepted by previous ministers, and that principle is now being demanded to be put in place. One can go further to say that the Nicholson report never ever recommended that the president of CSA be an independent, and all of a sudden that demand is being placed before the Members' Council. So let's correct the situation about the decisions of the Members' Council. In two legitimate special general meetings, through a legitimate democratic vote, they decided not to adopt this current MOI. SASCOC recognizes that democratic right of theirs to do so. But that doesn't mean that they are not going to want to change. They've committed to change, to correct their governance through the MOI. But the issue of not being a democratic elective process, SASCOC is completely against that.
Now, Barry, I hear what you are saying. If we look at, and I'm sure you are very familiar with the King 4 report on corporate governance, which speaks to ethical and effective leadership by a governing body, and we do hear that all parties are not happy with a majority independent board as well as an independent chair. Here's my question. Why? What is so wrong with a majority independent board? What is the fear from SASCOC? What is the fear from the Members' Council in what could possibly go wrong with having a majority independent board? What if it actually works out?
Well, you quote the King 4 report. The King 4 report asks for balance. And the King 4 report doesn't say that businessmen or independents are better leaders than sports leaders or sports administrators. But the fundamental fact is that through the international sporting community, the principle of electing leaders who have shown leadership qualities and leadership traits and characteristics, those leaders have constantly been elected. And this is what we are asking for from SASCOC. Follow the process. Our own constitution states that we must be electing people through an elective democratic process, open and transparent. And our leaders have come through on occasion. There are very few leaders that have fallen by the wayside, if you look at all the 89 different codes of sport in South Africa. So we're asking simply to sit around the table, to allow that democratic elective process to continue and to correct other matters relating to governance in the MOI of CSA. Noting especially that SASCOC did adopt a change in its own constitution to bring in specialists. So we have 2 independent specialists on the new SASCOC board, but definitely not majority independents who lead the organization.
Okay, Barry, quickly before we go, I know Sims has one more question for you.
Barry, SASCOC did try to sort of intervene in cricket's meltdown last year, and obviously pulled out due to lack of resources, etc. I know you weren't in the hot seat at the time. Alec was acting. Question is, SASCOC did then refer the matter to the minister. Is SASCOC's current stance basically saying that the minister's doing it the wrong way?
No, our stance is that when we hand it over, we ran into a brick wall around the Fundunzi report. We are now in a new phase dealing with the MOI, and our constitution states that before any organization that belongs to us changes its MOI or adopts it, they need to pass it through SASCOC for review. So that this one important statement of having independence, that will not pass through SASCOC. And therefore it's important that we follow a process. So we see this as another phase compared to the Fundunzi report. And through our own constitutional right, we are requesting to see that MOI, and we are requesting the minister to meet with us and with all the stakeholders, because we know that we can sort this matter out.
But unfortunately, we have run out of time. That is Barry Hendricks, the president of SASCOC. Thank you so much for making the time to chat with us. And we're going to see what is going to unfold at Cricket South Africa. We are still awaiting the minister to write to the ICC, and we're going to hear what comes out of that, Sims. It's going to be interesting, but I think it is scary. Do stay with us. Okay, so coming up, we have the...